Good evening, all. I, Professor R.K. Yadav, Director IQAC, welcome you all in today's international webinar on higher education strategies and learning process in the aftermath of COVID-19. As we all know that for last 1 year, whole world has suffered a lot due to COVID pandemic, and all sectors, all industries, particularly the education industries, was totally closed or shut down for last 1 year, and due to which the all academic activities were just negligible or shut down. But learning has no barrier, learning has no end, and considering this motive, we, the member of IQAC, member of IFTM University, has organized this international webinar. And what we can do in today's COVID pandemic and after COVID pandemic, for this, we have our resource person, Dr. Vipin Gupta. Dr. Vipin Gupta is Professor of Management and Co-Director of the Center for Global Management at the Jack H. Brown College of Business and Public Administration of California State University, San Bernardino. Professor Vipin Gupta has a master's and a PhD from the Wharton School of University of Pennsylvania. He has been a gold medalist for outstanding scholastic performance in the postgraduate program of the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, a top rank holder in the BCom Honors Program of the Delhi University from Sri Ram College of Commerce, and all India prized rank holder at the graduate program of the Institute of Cost and Works Accounts of India, and an all India matric rank holder in the 12th class with the Central Board of Secondary Education. Professor Gupta has authored more than 180 journal articles and book chapters. Dr. Gupta is the co-editor of the seminal Globe Culture, Leadership and Organization, the Globe Study of 62 Societies, published from SAGE. He is the principal investigator of the path-breaking case, that is Culturally Sensitive Assessment System and Education. In 2021, Professor Gupta is publishing 12 self-authored books under project Vastly Integrated Process Inside Nature, that is VIPIN, that integrates vast realms of ancient India wisdom and modern sciences and addresses major metaphysical gaps in both by illuminating the secret of natural essence and essential nature. The first 6 books published under the project since January 2021 are What is Divine Energy? What is Present Reality? Is present reality is divine energy? What is consciousness and what is para-consciousness? With this brief profile, may I request Professor Vipin Gupta sir to please take over this session and enlighten us with your wisdom and vast exposure.
Thank you, Dr. Rakesh Yadav, for that wonderful introduction and for organizing this session. What I'm sharing today is, of course, in the context of my learning over the years, but also in the context of the work that Dr. Yadav mentioned about the books that I'm writing this year. And these works take the ancient wisdom of India to address the issues that modern science has not been able to solve. We know that there are increasing a number of challenges that are beyond the scope and ability of modern science to solve. One major problem in particular, which is very relevant for higher education, is the unprecedented amount of inequities that we are seeing at the international level in the last 20 years. Project VIPIN, Vastly Integrated Processes Inside Nature. I called it Project VIPIN because it's about knowing our essential nature and knowing that Mother Nature has gifted all of us the same gifts that anybody has. Whatever that well-be that person is, if that person is a guru, everybody has been gifted the same gifts by Mother Nature. Mother Nature does not discriminate in giving gifts to her children. If I know my essential nature, in that case, that's the essential nature of each and every person and each and every entity in this universe. By knowing our essential nature, we can then see that how we can use that for our education and learning processes and for our development. for our own development and for the development of the society, economy, nation, and so on. Project Vipin is about strategic planning for managing the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, as all of you know the term VUCA, in the aftermath of COVID-19. Formerly, VUCA was about the shift towards the digital world, and wealth creation and philanthropy depends on the continuity of the shift. As we go kind of more and more in the digital world, there's uncertainty and volatility, how much the digital world will be successful, how much new technologies will be successful, because what we have been doing, there's no uncertainty in that. The uncertainty is about the new things that somebody wants to create. That's where the volatility comes, that's where the complexity comes and ambiguity comes. That how much rest of the world, the 85% of the world, which are increasingly going towards the bottom of the pyramid, how much more they will continue to let maybe one person own the rest of the wealth, 99% of the wealth. So there's ambiguity there, because anytime any of us can stop and say that we are not going to become poorer by sharing more of our wealth with the people who are not investing the same in our families, in our communities. Suppose you are watching a movie of celebrities and those celebrities are using your money to have international vacations. Then you are making yourself poor, you are making your children poor, you are making your community poor, because that wealth has been transferred to those who are not investing in your community. Of course, if the celebrities are doing international vacations, buying international brands, making international community richer by generating money internationally, then that's fair. But now the VUCA is about the shift toward the physical world. Many lives and livelihoods depend on the continuity of the shift. If we do not come back to physical world, then this shift towards digital world will continue. And it's going to, of course, create kind of challenges for the people who are not connected with digital world. Research question and higher education strategy is that will Mother Nature continue to be benevolent towards the wealthy by pushing them into a state of super leadership with more and more money, so that they don't really need to work anything anymore, and they can appoint other people as leaders and they can play golf? Or is Mother Nature continue to test the devotion of not so wealthy by pushing them into a state of super followership? If you have no money and you're not able to invest in your education, then essentially you are left at the mercy of charity, and therefore you are a super follower now. You cannot be even a follower who is working in the command of leaders. In my work, I show the meaning of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva means every moment needs to be addressed with a new approach. Why? Because we are all conscious entities. We should be conscious about what's the need of the moment. Based on the need of the moment, we need to be responsive. Sattva means discontinuous. We should not be continuing what has already happened. Old knowledge, basi thought, basi khana, basi soch, basi approach has no value in every taja moment. Enlightened Guru's role is every moment you get a new knowledge that's appropriate for that moment. In the past, when we talked about sattva approach, it was dharam sthapak. So a correlation between the creator, creature, and the creation, appropriate for each moment of time, because every moment creation is new. Every moment Mother Nature's beauty is new. How can we create a strategy based on discontinuous approach that is based on the moment? What is Rajas? Rajas means continuous. We follow a same approach in a continuous way. We become Raja. We begin accumulating wealth using the same approach. An enlightened Guru establishes a religion based on what's appropriate at the moment in terms of what correlation we need to have with the creator and the creation as a creature. Sri Krishna is giving guidance to Arjuna relevant for how Arjuna should, without any fear, with full confidence, should take up the arms and do the task which has been entrusted to him in that moment. If we say that Sri Krishna's knowledge was limited to what he told Arjuna in that battlefield in Gita, then we are fools. Sri Krishna shared only a very small proportion of his knowledge. Enlightened gurus, they share their wisdom, and we call that religion, whether we Christian religion, Islam religion, that's only a proportion of what that person knew or could know that was shared in that moment for the benefit of the people who were there at that moment. And if we limit our knowledge only to that, then that limits the potential that we have as gifted children of Mother Nature. Raja becomes a dharam rakshak. Once a dharam has been established, a correlation has been established, you try to protect that. You are not enlightened yourself to create that sattvic in the moment discontinuity needed for fresh approach. Therefore, you continue what benefited you in that moment. When enlightened guru taught you something, you benefited from that, from following that. Then you say that this is the golden mantra. And now I'm going to follow that, and I'm going to tell my praja, this is the mantra I was given. And therefore, everybody should follow this mantra. Raja is not getting benefit from following that mantra, but he or she is getting benefit because everybody is following the mantra and giving him royalties. Everybody else is using their reason and intuition to create discontinuity on their own, because whatever Raja is telling them, they realize that it's not working. That's the enlightened guru knows that if you follow his advice, every moment in future, you're not going to succeed. You're going to face that dukkha. The only way you will succeed is when you realize that I need to have fresh thinking. Of course, you will give credit to the guru because that's what guru deserves, because guru's intention was that. But success was not because of that mantra. The mantra became only a metaphysical solution for activating that freshness, the sattva gunu, the guru tattva within you. So you can give credit to guru and raja, but that was your guru that allowed you to create that success. And that's what we do in higher education. We cultivate the essential nature of our students to respond to questions, respond to issues that we put them on the moment. So they can become conscious of all the challenges, and based on that, they develop their faculty, a discriminating faculty to make decisions. The third guna is a tamas guna. Tamas is much vilified. Again, people don't understand what tamas is. Tamas means infinite. A person who is following an infinite guna, that person is a dharam bhaksha. A raja has given his mantri the role, make everybody follow this mantra. So my teacher has taught me this. Everybody should follow this. Okay, in my company, everybody should follow this particular approach. Mantri goes in every person, whether it's a children, whether an old person, everybody. Mantri says that if you want to live in this Raja's kingdom, you have to follow the Guru mantra that Raja has been given. That's the Raj Dharma in this Rajya. If you are a good citizen, you'll follow the Raj Dharma. Ultimately, people revolt because they said that we are stopped from following our own intuition. You're asking me to begin worshipping only Raja and Gurus. That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do any work. So I now become a devotee because you're telling me that by following this Guru mantra, maybe I'll begin meditating and I will begin worshipping Raja and do nothing. So everybody follows the Guru mantra to infinite. What happens? Everybody get destroyed. Because if nobody is working, all you're doing is one thing. Okay, if everybody goes to Kailasha and starts meditating, what happens? Everybody dies because everybody wants to find food in the forest and there's no food left in the forest. By following that approach to infinite, what you become dharam bhakshak, because whatever correlation was established by Guru's wisdom, that needs to be destroyed. A new correlation needs to be created that recognizes the freedom, the potential of each person to act in the moment. Spontaneity, the reciprocity, the appropriateness of your actions, words, thoughts, what leads to what's called Siddhi Guna. Siddhi is impact, the impact that you want, your divinity. So if you want to make an impact, an everlasting impact, and if you want to show your divinity that each of us have, as we develop our own self-awareness, through our ascending consciousness, that we become aware of our divinity. And we realize that we were already a divine entity. So even now, even though you may not be conscious, we are all divine entities. Why? Because we are capable of making impact, and impact is our divinity. Impact in Sanskrit means siddhi, and siddhi means divinity. Higher education strategy number 1, discontinue and weaken the undesirable past reality. So that will be sattva guna. In science, the past reality is subjective and implicitly biased. Each person has a different past. We have all different experiences that shape what a person has become and is open to be in the present. By surfacing and zeroing those experiences, we can let each person be whole. So that's the one very important learning strategy in higher education. When the students come from different backgrounds, somebody has come from a village, somebody has come from urban area, somebody has come from with a lot of international experiences. Each person has a different view of what is possible and what is not possible. If you want them to know that sky is the possibility, sky is the limit, the very first thing is that all affordances the children have, their current consciousness afford them, and which limit. Okay, we say that they afford them, but actually they limit their openness to new things, their recipiency and percipiency of new ideas and new knowledge, new wisdom, new intuition, new reason that you are imparting them. Then the only way is you surface them through case studies, critical analysis. You make them understand that their experiences are limited, and therefore they should transcend beyond those experiences. Only by zeroing their current experiences, they can enjoy new experiences. A mantra of life is, do you want to live the same experience that you have lived already before you came to higher education for your entire life? If yes, then you don't need to be taking this higher education. If no, let's get out of those experiences. Those experiences will remain with you. But you are here to cleanse those experiences, to cleanse that past, so that you can chart a new future for you. So you can be a whole only if we zero the experiences that you already have. Otherwise, the people will always have a doubt, a lack of confidence, a lack of certainty, a volatility, a complexity, an ambiguity about what you're teaching. Their experiences are going to be different. They will not be able to see the value of what is being taught, that discontinue and weaken the past reality. Second, the Rajas Gunas strategy is continue and strengthen the present reality. The role of a Dharma Sthapak is to discontinue whatever has happened in the past. Every moment, that's why we have new religion. When the new enlightened Guru comes, says that forget about the past, let's start this. So Guru Nanak came, he understood that whatever people were doing, that was not appropriate for the moment. So Guru Nanak Ji said that this is what you need to do. He strengthened the present reality by giving his insights and his illumination about what was the appropriate approach and appropriate behavior. If we start discriminating and saying that that was only for the people who are sick, then we limit our understanding and our potential, because what he taught is for everybody. Just like whatever anybody else taught, enlightened Guru is for everybody to follow and understand and to develop. But if we follow that throughout our lives without understanding that we need to follow a discontinuous approach as well, the purpose that Guru Nanak Ji taught, or Isa Masih taught, or Prophet Muhammad Ji taught is lost. Present reality is subjective and explicitly biased. It's not implicitly biased, it's explicitly biased. Why is explicitly biased? We have a different perception. We have a different view on the present. We perceive present in a different way of the implicit experiences one has had in the past. So each person has a different view. In the present, explicit perceptions are a function of implicit experiences. Because we did not zero your past implicit experiences, they keep on shaping our past consciousness, the soul. The consciousness is soul. Soul, our consciousness, influences our perceptions of the present. We need to round and unify those experiences. So all of us have heard of the story of a blind man and elephant. Elephant is there. A blind man who touches tail says that elephant is like a rope. A blind man who touches his feet, elephant is like a pillar. We have to have them a 360-degree view. And that's why in higher education, it's very important that we develop a curriculum that provides a 360-degree view of the reality. And only then will give them the ability to transcend beyond the subjectivity, to fulfill the objective. Objective is to conceive and know the things that are needed for success in the moment, rather than relying on whatever mantras we have already established in the past. We always need to modify that mantra for the present moment. If we blindly follow the same mantra and apply the same solution to every problem, then that problem will leave residual problems. We become managers of those residual problems. So for instance, it's raining and you decide that you are not going to use the solution of carrying an umbrella. Umbrella carrying is very cumbersome, and you go out to get some sabji and you get soaked in water and you become sick. So the solution that you applied, that if sabji is not there, you are hungry, let me go and get my fresh vegetable from the market. But because your solution was not holistic, you did not carry umbrella. That was a need of the moment. You became sick and you created another problem for you. So instead of now living a life full of solutions, you start living life full of problem solving. The only way we can avoid a life full of problem solving, that ultimately becomes a life full of problems that we cannot solve. Because if you become so sick, you cannot even solve that problem. You need to go to and see a doctor. So, and if you see a doctor, then that increases your cost of living. Why you wanted that fresh sabji not to be delivered by somebody who has an umbrella? Because you wanted to save that 10 rupees to delivery guy. But now you end up paying 100 rupees to a doctor, if you can find a doctor with 100 rupees. The life that we are living. And that's why every moment we are making ourselves poor. So we are making somebody else the Raja by following that Raj Dharma, while we are acting like an Praja. And then we say that the government, the Yogi ji, the Modi ji, or anybody else, they are not doing any social service because they're not solving the problem that we have created. The third is higher education strategy number 3, Tamas Guna. Tamas Guna is about reproduce a desired future reality into infinity. The future reality is subjective and normatively biased, perceiving a different desire about what we want in the future. Some of us want nirvana, some of us want moksha, some of us want just enjoy life so that we can go and have a holiday in Switzerland or in the USA or somewhere else. Each one of us has a different desire about the future, and that desire is focused on, is based on our past experiences and present beliefs. So if somebody, our neighbor, said that they went to Switzerland, now we create a desire that we want to go to Switzerland too, and we want to go to Switzerland as well as UK, so that we can be one up, we can be superior, right? So our past experience based on somebody else's experience and our present beliefs. Our present belief is that if we are not doing the same experiences that everybody else has, then somehow we are inferior. We have lost the social prestige. Somehow we have lost the social face. We have to have a future that makes us this in the top 1%. We want to become Ambani so that we can enjoy it all, right? And therefore, it's very important to create that wealth, not for the nation, but for ourselves, so that we can enjoy that and our children can enjoy that, and they can enjoy all these experiences. So by sharing the unified local experiences of each person, future reality that each person has created, we can be whole person conscious of the diverse experiences as if they are our extended self. When we talk about the universe, the Brahman and the Atman, that universe, the Guru as Paramatma has created multiple selves. All the selves have been created and the creation of this Brahman. All the Atmans are creation of this Brahman. And that Atman is the extended self of Brahman. The Guru does not need to enjoy those experiences on his or her own. Guru experiences that through you. So that's the philosophy, that if we stop differentiating, we can enjoy that experiences through oneness with that person. How can we one with 6 billion people on the earth? How can we one with each one of them? Each one of them is different. You don't need to be one with each one of them. All you need to be one with is Mother Nature, because everybody's swabhav is a function of Mother Nature, Kudrat, right? And I in my work, I also quantify the energy values of each of the concepts that I'm saying. So what's the energy value of Tamas? Energy value of Rajas is 15. Energy value of Sattva is 4 ones. Create a discontinuous future in 4 dimensional space. So that's why it's 1, 1, 1, 1. You reproduce that oneness in all 4 dimensional space. So Kudrat's energy value is 8. Why 8? Because it's 3 dimensions time, 4 dimensional space, and 1 dimension of entity. Everything is 8 dimensional, save the 8 dimensions. So that's what Kundalini is also 8. That's the infrastructure that Mother Nature has given us. We don't understand our essential nature, so Kundalini kind of provides that substitute for us, build on kind of the gifts that Mother Nature has given us. Through oneness with our essential nature, by cultivating and developing our essential nature, we develop oneness with everybody. Of course, we can then reproduce this into infinity, because we can reproduce reality, this understanding, this clarified consciousness, the experiences that everybody has. Those experiences, we can also enjoy those experiences to oneness. Therefore, we don't need to repeat and reproduce the experiences that others already have. We are a unique person. We have been given unique gifts. Therefore, we are capable of enjoying new experiences that nobody else has experienced till now. And that's how we manifest our divinity and our impact, by motivating each child to manifest his or her own experiences, fresh experiences, not guided by everybody else's experiences, not living a life of deficit, not living a life of depression and tension. You want to achieve and reproduce what somebody else has done. You want to achieve something that that was your imaginary reality. So you imagined your reality, that should be your inspiration to create a new reality that transcends the imaginary reality. So every moment that you're living should be joyful, because it should be something that you never imagined. It should be beyond your imagination. It should be beyond everybody else's imagination. And that would happen only when it is first written in Sattva Guna, then Rajas Guna, and then Tamas Guna. All 3 gunas are important for you to have that siddhi. There is no superiority or inferiority among these gunas. Once you begin seeing them as superior, inferior, then I showed you that the guru, you say that that's sattva, and then you begin reproducing it, you automatically become a tamasic person, a discordant entity, asura, because you are no longer concordant with the need of the hour, the need of the minute, need of the moment. Each one of us has become a discordant entity, asura. Asura means we are not in tune, we are not in sura of the time, because we carry this past baggage with us. And that makes us tamasic, even though we believe that we are living a sattvic life. We are already living a basi life, a degenerating life, and that's why our physical body starts degenerating, our intellectual body stops working. We use only 1 or 2% of our brain. Our mental body is full of garbage, useless thoughts every moment, a lot of headaches, start polluting our astral body, etheric body, causal body, and then the self-luminous entity that we are, we start degenerating that.
Sir, my question is about like the third guna, that is the tamas guna. I have some little bit knowledge about all these three. The tamasic is somewhat like the tamasic kind of attitude, a person having some ego and all this kind of things. So how could this thing be related as in the strategy for the aftermath of this COVID-19?
Very good. So that's a good question. What the tamasic is, that you're producing a desired future reality into infinity. So you are letting everybody else follow different experiences, and only then you can be sattvic. Okay, so that's the that everybody else who have a discordant reality of their own, because they have their own unique gifts. So by letting them follow their unique things into infinity, okay, because your desired future, whatever you thought that you want to do, your ego is based on the idea that you can do more, you can have more experiences than anybody else has, or your experiences have been better than anybody else's experiences. So either you have better ability.
Sir, is this going in a very positive way, or like no? Are you like what I want to say is that tamasic nature is never been in a positive sense.
Yes, so that's what, and sattvic has never been seen as a negative sense. So I showed you that sattvic is what's positive becomes negative, and what's negative becomes positive.
Exactly.
Okay, so if you let other people live their reality, in that case you can live your reality. Okay, so that's the idea.
In this way, this is.
Otherwise, you become tamasic.
Obviously, that's why I asked this question, sir.
Right. So if you don't want to become a tamasic person, then you need to let other people live the life they are living and live your life.
Yes, correct. You live your life, and I am living my life in my way.
Exactly. Okay. So that's what. So essentially, we have redefined tamasic by saying that if every person is living their lives, that's the discordant lives. Now let me have my own life.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
And actually, in terms of specific strategies, I have left later, and I didn't go there because essentially, so each one of them. So let me show. So 3 steps. Okay. So let me kind of discuss these steps. So now each department, each faculty, each college in IFTM have their own experience, because each one of us had adapted to COVID in a different way, right? Because before COVID, many of us never taught online, never taught virtually. Even if we taught virtually, we did not have a way to connect. So each one of us has now a new way of teaching. And we also saw that many of our students may not have digital assets. Their internet connectivity is poor. Our internet connectivity is poor. And therefore, some of us use telephones, some of us use other modes in order to connect with children and students. So how can we use these strategies? Either we can say that let's consider each one of them as a different discontinuous strategy. What Himanshu ji came up with, that's a different strategy. What Madhvi ji came up with, that's a different strategy. What Sukriti ji came, Dr. Sukriti came, that was a different strategy. And what Tanzil ji came, that was a different strategy. Now I'm going to sequentially reproduce each local experience within our global self, within my IFTM. So first day, I'm going to bring Dr. Himanshu to share his experiences so that everybody listens. Second day, I'm going to bring Dr. Madhvi so that everybody listens and sees whatever is relevant. Third day, I'm going to bring Dr. Sukriti. Fourth day, I'm going to bring Dr. Tanzil. Okay, so, and that way, each person can give feedback, and we can use disciplinary, functional, and organizational approaches for sequencing the local experiences. So I can say that first, I'm going to let my management school come up and share their experience. Then I will have medicine school. Then I will have engineering school. So that way, I now have a strategic awareness of everything, all the solutions that folks in my university have developed, so that I don't lose any of those ideas as time passes by. So that's one approach. The second approach is that let each person reproduce our global self as their global self to authenticate the value of our global experience. So essentially, we can let each person sort of say that, yes, this is IFTM, and community provides a lot of solutions. And I create a page, a web page, or any other page, a community forum, where different members of the community are sharing their experiences. In that case, Registrar Sir is not the person who is coordinating this first approach, but it becomes a decentralized approach where everybody is sharing their experiences and they're producing the global self, and they're becoming the role models, how to sequentially connect the local experiences. The third approach is we don't use the approaches and learning within IFTM, but we invite people outside IFTM, like you invited me, and you're discovering new things. Because you are saying that IFTM has now a reputation, and based on that reputation and standing, we can now explore new things so that we can let people go beyond the experiences that they had. So now, if we say that each one of them is disjointed, that we should do only one, you can see the folly of that solution. We use all three. The first one is we are almost become like a tamasic consumer of each and every experience in our university, because we know that in that discordance, in that tamasic, is the opportunity for people to see the sattva, for them to see how these things may be made relevant to the present moment. So if there was no Ravan, there would have not been any Ram. If there were no Rakshasas, then there will be no need for Shri Krishna to take incarnation. If there were no challenges and no discordant energies, then Prophet Muhammad, Guru Nanak Ji, wouldn't have been here. And we wouldn't have been blessed with whatever they taught us. What we perceive as negativity is Mother Nature's positivity. Mother Nature is giving that negativity to help us cultivate that positivity within us. That becomes a catalyst and inspiration for change, for discontinuous change. And ultimately, discontinuous is not important. What's important is the impact that we make, the Siddhi, as a conscious entity, as I said.
Sir, really, this is very first time I have heard that these three gunas can be connected with the, teaching kind of thing. Because the time I have heard about all these three gunas, like first one is the sattvic, that going toward the positive sense. The Rajas guna is like that you are manipulative kind of person. And this tamasic is that you know that you are having some sort of negativity in your mind. But you are relating these things with the strategy, and that is very good and new thing for me to learn. And highly appreciate, sir. I highly appreciate your effort and the concept you have given in the starting, that Vipin word, and you related with your name, sir. It's very good, sir. I am highly impressed with this.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Let me take this opportunity to propose the vote of thanks. I would like to thank to Dr. Vipin Gupta, sir, for wonderful session. As I am seeing the chat messages, lot of people are appreciating you, and Most of the time we had more than 120 participants listening to you from India, sir. I know it is early in the morning there in USA, and you have taken a lot of pains to deliver your speech. We are at the evening here and you are very in the morning. I would like to say that after COVID-19, it is really tough how to cope up with the new challenges. But with the Indian culture and ancient Indian wisdom, you have a vast knowledge and experience in this particular issue, and you have written a lot of books also. So you have delivered beautifully about all these Sattvic, Tattvik, and Tamasic, so that you have correlated all the strategies which are inherent in our Indian culture and how we can learn from this Vedic education and from this Indian culture to implement it in modern education system. Because you have rightly said, बासी सोच को हटाकर ही हम एक नई सोच की तरफ बढ़ सकते हैं. Absolutely right. Until unless we will not forget our past, we cannot think about, we cannot imagine about a better future.